What's good, YouTube? It's your boy JrTheOota. Today we finna be reacting to Nathaniel, the 11-year-old killer. Do me a favor, if you're new to my channel, smash that like button, sub up. Let me know what type of videos you want to see.
Nathaniel was just 11 years old when he found himself in the middle of one of the most controversial
Lean, what's good? What's good, Lean?
murder cases in the history of the United States of America. The case scandalized the country, and almost everyone responded with outrage. A murder case. But the folks on Nathaniel's block, his own neighbors, well, they weren't particularly shocked. He might have been little, measuring no more than 4 feet and weighing a little under 65 pounds, but he was also a thorn in the side of everyone in the neighborhood.
11-year-old, 65 pounds?
A danger to the community.
He threatened my grandsons all the time. He threw rocks at my mom's house. I mean, he was dangerous.
And she wasn't alone. Another neighbor, an 11-year-old girl, shared a similar sentiment. Because, according to her, when they were both 9, Nate had threatened her with a gun. So, as Nathaniel Abraham's murder case began to take its hold in the center of public consciousness, it became clear that his entire block had turned against him. As disturbing as these allegations sounded, it seemed like they were true. All of his neighbors wanted him locked up. Except one. Only one neighbor on Nate's block came to his defense when the cameras started rolling. He didn't try to downplay or dismiss claims about the boy.
I think that's crazy for him to be charged as an adult. He was only 11 years old.
This neighbor was convinced that the little boy wasn't the devil. He was just a broken child who made terrible...
Nah, word, 11 years old? Lean, what's up? What's up, Lean? How you doing? No way he's getting trialed as an adult at 11 years old. That's not right.
Decisions. This man had also experienced a version of Nate that his neighbors hadn't got the chance to see. He wanted the government and the prosecutors to go easy on the young boy. Why? Because Nathaniel Abraham was an 11-year-old boy.
What he do though? He committed murder. He committed murder at 11.
With the murder of an 18-year-old named Ronnie Green.
11-year-old killed an 18-year-old.
Because in the most controversial turn of events, the state of Michigan was willing and ready to try him as an adult due to the severity of his crime. And if they found him guilty...
Trial him as an adult is crazy. He was only 11.
Prosecutors were able to get what they wanted. Little Nate would spend the rest of his life in prison for a crime he committed when he was just 11. Some of you watching would say murder is murder regardless of the age. That's what makes the intricacies of this story all the more interesting. Let me set the record straight before we dive into this case. The true victim in this story was 18-year-old Ronnie Green. Nate was a preteen who killed a teenager, and now he had to face the consequences. So, what went wrong? We have to trace the thread back to the very beginning. Pontiac, Michigan, 1986. Months after he was born, his father left and never returned.
This was in Pontiac. This where DDG from.
Change resulted in incredible hardship for the family because Nate wasn't the only child. There were 6 of them. His mother, Gloria, was forced to take up 2 jobs to keep their family afloat. She had to work day and night, so she was never around. And Nate's formative years were spent under the care of his older siblings. Gloria was caught between a rock and a hard place, between spending time raising her children or working hard to ensure they didn't starve to death. It's no easy dilemma. However, this whole situation turned out to be the perfect storm for something dark within Nate. With no one to keep him in check, Nate became delinquent. From the moment he could walk, he began to exhibit extremely antisocial behavior. Many kids show these traits when they are young. Parents corrected and rooted out, but no one was around to do that for Nate. So it grew into something so ugly that by the time that he was 9, he had become a troublesome child with a rap sheet of a serious middle-aged criminal. From the age of 9 till 11, Nate had 22 police encounters. Some for arson, a couple of others for assault, and several for breaking and entering.
9 to 11, he got arrested 30 plus times. Holy shit.
Of those 22, at least 5 involved the use of a weapon.
22.
One involved a 14-year-old that he beat with a steel pipe, and the last involved an adult, a bus driver. At some point, he became such a problem in the neighborhood that the prosecutors would later reveal in court that a neighbor moved out of the block because of him. That same neighbor would also say, quite prophetically, that someday Nate was going to kill somebody. Now, you are probably...
He moved out of the block because of fucking 11-year-old. Imagine an 11-year-old has so much power to move you and your family out of the block, gang.
Wondering what Nate's mother did during this period. At some point, she began to feel helpless when almost every day there was someone knocking on their door reporting Nate's latest crime. One major reason why she felt helpless was because that she had actually gone to the police for help. She wanted them to intervene in her son's situation, but they referred her to the juvenile court. And when she got there, they sent her back to the police, telling her that her word wasn't enough. No one was prepared to help. Nobody was ready to intervene. Now, remember when I said Nate was born into a perfect storm? There was one more piece left for the chaotic future he was now destined to have.
That's crazy as fuck.
The 1980s was a very interesting decade in American history. Ronald Reagan became president. CNN became a thing. There were those interesting looking Macintosh computers, and then there was violence. Widespread violence in major cities like New York and Chicago. However, the most troubling part of the 1980s was the spike in the level of violent crimes committed by juveniles. Between 1980 and 1994, the number of juvenile homicide offenders doubled, and according to FBI clearance statistics from that time frame, the juvenile responsibility for all...
God damn. In 1992, 2,595 juveniles committed murder.
All homicides in the country
Holy shit.
moved from 5% to 10%. The quick answer to why this was happening was the crack epidemic of the mid-1980s. In the inner cities, it had become a plague, and it wasn't long before those drugs got paired with guns and juveniles. Now, the progression from drug trade to gun violence isn't surprising. In fact, many would agree it's natural and expected. But how did kids get into the mix? Well, drug traffickers at the time found that children and teenagers made excellent recruits, better than adults. Children worked as low-level sellers, carriers, and lookouts, while working for less, taking greater risks, and escaping detention. Because at the time, no one would have guessed that an 11-year-old standing on a street corner was a drug dealer. And even when these kids got caught, their age implied innocence, and it meant that they escaped punishment.
Crazy.
From the drug dealer's perspective, these juveniles were beyond perfect. So it wasn't long before these...
Yo, look at this shit, chat. These niggas is like 5, bro.
Same juveniles came in contact with guns and began using them for their own protection, even if they didn't need to. They aspired to use them because guns had become a status symbol for the drug dealing lifestyle that these kids now wanted to be a part of. And
yeah, Blicky to the Dome was crazy. YDG, you seen that? That's crazy.
A decade earlier, in 1976, records showed that less than 2/3 of juvenile homicide offenders used a gun. And by 1994, 82% of juveniles used a gun.
82%?
This was the background of Nate's
Holy
childhood.
Shit.
And while there is no record of drug dealing activity on his juvenile record, it wouldn't be wild to suggest that he found himself in that crowd. And that it was that crowd that enabled his truancy. Where else do you think he got the gun he used? His mother didn't own a gun. Now, as expected, the government's response to this spike of violent, gun-fueled juvenile delinquency was to turn to the law. So, as the 1980s progressed, a growing number of states passed laws stipulating that kids under 17 could be tried as adults for certain crimes.
These the OGYNs, word.
Because they weren't seeking direct solutions.
These niggas,
they were just adding to the punishment.
These niggas were fucking 8 years old. Like, why being a YN at 8 years old is crazy.
Supporters of this law, who happened to be civilians like you and me, took to the streets, waving banners and slogans that read, "Adult crime, adult time." And by 1992, more than 40 states had passed laws for trying children as adults. But no state's version of the juvenile justice law matched the severity of Michigan's. Michigan, the same state that Nathaniel Abraham was born in,
Sad
raised
as
in,
fuck, no
and would
cap.
commit his devastating crime in, set no limits on the age that a child could be tried as an adult. They called their law "Get Tough on Juvenile Offenders." In fact, when one of the state senators who pushed for this law was asked if a child as young as 4 could be tried as an adult, his answer was a resounding yes. The stage was now...
Yes? I ain't gonna lie, that's ridiculous. Chat, let's be honest here, that's ridiculous. A fucking 4-year-old tried as an 18-year-old? Come on. Let's be real.
set for Nathaniel
Let's be
Abraham's
real.
crime. And 3 years after that law was passed...
What was that video before? Yeah, it was a loyalty test. It was a
in
loyalty test.
1997, when 11-year-old Nathaniel Abraham shot 18-year-old Ronnie Green, he became the scapegoat of a law that set the scene for the country's most controversial juvenile murder trial to date. On the 31st of October 1997, there was a commotion in Lincoln Middle School. There were police officers in the 6th grade class, and they were reading their rights, not to the class teacher, but to 11-year-old Nathaniel Abraham, dressed up in a Halloween costume. A day before, on the 30th of October, 1997, an 18-year-old boy named Ronnie Green had passed away after fighting for his life for almost 24 hours.
What's this video about? The Nathaniel, the 11-year-old killer. 11-year-old killer, gang.
He had been shot in the head by a single bullet from a .22 caliber rifle.
How the fuck is an 11-year-old shooting a rifle? Nigga, he's 4 feet. That shit's supposed to blow him back. How?
As investigators scrambled to find out who this killer was, they discovered that on the day before, 11-year-old Nathaniel Abraham had stolen a .22 caliber rifle and gone shooting outside. He shot at a neighbor's house first, narrowly missing the man who owned the house. And moments later, he stood in a cluster of trees about 200 feet away from a convenience store, took aim, and fired a bullet that would hit 18-year-old Ronnie Green in the head and kill him roughly a day later. While Nate admitted that he was the one who shot Ronnie, he denied targeting him. Instead, he claimed that he was only aiming for light bulbs and trees. The shot that killed Ronnie Green was, by his own admission, an unfortunate error. The prosecutors weren't buying it. Despite the fact that the 11-year-old boy had never met Ronnie Green before the shooting, they were convinced that he had deliberately set out to kill someone that day. If you're wondering what fueled the
he
prosecutor's
probably
conviction,
did, low-key.
well, they had evidence that Nate had spoken to his girlfriend, saying that he was going to kill someone on the morning of Ronnie Green's tragic demise. And that, after the shooting, he had bragged about the kill he made to his friends. With the backing of Michigan's Get Tough on Juvenile...
You bragging about this shit? I ain't gonna lie, mud. I think the perfect punishment would be like, I'll say 20 years. I say give him 20 years, let him get out when he's 31.
Offenders law, the prosecutors received permission to try Nate as an adult, charging him with first-degree murder and several other felonies. Nate was arrested, placed in handcuffs, and he was sent to Oakland County Children's Village, a juvenile detention center in Michigan, while he awaited trial. The arrest was deeply controversial. Controversial enough to deeply divide the country along several ethical lines. While there were many unwilling to contribute to the discussion, there were many more who thought that this was a fitting punishment for the 11-year-old Nate. There was an overwhelming majority...
You gonna do it again? Bro, at 31 though, gang, I feel like he would learn his lesson, you feel me? I feel like he would learn his lesson because he did this shit at 11. You feel me? He ain't really have no, you feel me, 20 years in prison. I feel like it would change him.
Especially in the black community who were against the decision. Amnesty International, Reverend Al Sharpton, and probably every major civil rights activist in the country protested against the whole affair, calling it a disgrace to the justice system that should protect children, delinquent or not. Like I noted earlier, they were trying to try him as an adult, and if he was found guilty, he would be sent to prison for the rest of his life.
Damn.
One lawyer was outraged enough by the case that he chose to take it on pro bono, at no cost to Nate's family. This lawyer was named Jeffrey Feiger. He was a lawyer...
Nah, this the best lawyer I've ever seen. he chose to pick up the case free. He said, I got you, cuz. I got you. W lawyer, no bullshit.
Who, up to that point, had built a reputation for taking on most cases that lawyers wouldn't touch. His most infamous past client at that time was a man named Jack Kevorkian, also known as Dr. Death. Jack Kevorkian was an actual doctor with the rap sheet of a comic book villain. On his rap sheet, the man had advocated harvesting the organs from death row inmates. While he was a pathologist, he experimented with transfusing blood from the recently deceased into live patients.
Whoa.
He did a lot of bizarre, unethical things throughout his career as a doctor, but the most controversial one, the one that got Geoffrey Fieger representing him as his attorney in court, involved assisted suicide in Michigan. Kevorkian's story is worthy of its own video, so I won't go down that rabbit hole. Just know that while Nate's situation was controversial, it was not new to Geoffrey Fieger. And immediately he took on Nate's case. He began a series of motions and appeals that delayed the trial for at least 2 more years, enough time for him to prepare. On the 29th of October 1999, the murder trial began. Nate's first appearance in court looked like something from a really dark SNL sketch. He was dressed in oversized prison garb. There were cuffs on his wrists and chains on his feet. When he was asked to raise his right hand, he raised his left. Halfway through the hearings, he would start sobbing, and for most of the trial, he looked lost. But prosecutors and the politicians who supported this law were hell-bent on seeing it through to the end. I'm gonna shoot somebody. In her opening statement, the prosecutor, Lisa Haluska, dramatically wrote down those words for the jury to read. She claimed that these were the words that 11-year-old Nate told his girlfriend days before the killing.
Damn.
As the trial progressed, this prosecutor called witnesses who supported the idea that Nathaniel's act was, in fact, a premeditated murder. According to the witnesses, he had stolen the rusty rifle he used, then practiced target shooting at balloons and the houses of his neighbors before the fatal shooting of Ronnie Green. Later, the prosecutor would also note that Nate had told the police contradicting stories about the shooting, which, according to her, was proof that he knew what he had done and that it was wrong. When it was Geoffrey Fieger's turn, he argued that the shooting was an unfortunate accident. He didn't dispute the fact that Nathaniel fired the gun, but he insisted that the boy was not trying to hit anyone. Fieger brought an expert marksman to stand as a witness who testified that it would have been almost impossible to deliberately hit a small target from more than 200 feet, which was the approximate distance Nate was from the victim. And it was even more unlikely because the rifle he used was old and battered.
Nah, yeah, chat. I ain't gonna lie. That does make sense, because how the fuck is a 11-year-old kid gonna shoot a rifle from 200 feet and hit it? It's not like he has a scope or anything. It's just no way he's hitting that shot, nigga. That's like a Fortnite type of shot.
Later, Fieger called.
It's like using a hunting rifle from 200 feet in Fortnite. It's damn near impossible, chat.
On child psychologists to describe Nathaniel's mental state. According to these experts, Nate had an IQ of 70, and at the time of the murder, his thought process were like those of a 6-year-old. Fieger tried to prove that Nathaniel lacked impulse control and the mental capacity to form the intent to kill. However, the prosecution brought their own psychologist to the stand as a witness, and he rebutted the claim that Nate couldn't form an intent to kill. Nate's case was a delicate one. If you were in front of the family of the deceased, how could you say your son's killer was just a child? In a way, there was something odd about the entire premise of the case, because if Nate had been a 30-year-old man who was examined by a court psychologist and determined to have the mental capacity of a 6-year-old, would a 30-year-old Nate still be tried? But wait a minute, the plot thickens, because the Constitution also stipulates that Nate be tried by a jury of his peers. And we both know that there is no way the court was going to do a pre-teen jury selection in an elementary school. So the jury that was hearing Nate's case were all adults. There were constitutional gaps that this murder trial allowed.
Sheesh, I ain't gonna lie, chat. This is some crazy ish right here. I'm gonna be honest. I don't agree with anything he did at all. 100% wrong, 100% needs to do his time, whatever the case may be. But I don't think he should be tried as an adult. He was only 11 years old. You feel me? His brain was probably not. For me, I think they should or nah. I think cause I'm pretty sure if they trial him as an adult, what was I finna say? Like, you could get life, like the possibilities life. But if you get tried as a kid, I'm pretty sure you get out at like 21.
Was confronted the prosecution about it. They argued that the adult nature of Nate's crime and the severity of the consequences
I think he should at least get 20, 25 years,
was what justified the jury of adults. At the end of the day, the truth was, even though 2 years had passed since he committed the crime and Nathaniel Abraham was now 13, he was still too young to drive a car, too young to drink, too young to vote. And as a direct consequence of this, people still argue that he should have been too young to be tried as an adult. In the final days of the trial, the prosecutors began seeking a compromise. No more first-degree murder charges. Now they were asking the presiding judge, on Nate's behalf, to allow the jury to consider a lesser offense. Whether this was out of goodwill or because there was no victory in sending an 11-year-old to life behind bars, well, no one knows. What we do know is that it worked, and on the 16th of November 1999, Nate was found guilty of second-degree murder, which still made him the youngest American to be ever convicted of murder as an adult. And there were 3 options on the table for the judge. The first was the harshest, a prison term of 8 to 25 years. The second option was more moderate, blended sentence, and it would see Nate go to a juvenile detention center. By the time he turned 18, if he was properly rehabilitated, he would be released. If not, he would be transferred to an adult prison after turning 21 to serve the rest of his 25-year sentence. This is what the prosecutors wanted. This is what they pushed for, but it wasn't what the judge eventually chose. To their surprise, the judge went for the third option, which was the most lenient. Nate would be sent to a juvenile detention center and he would stay there till he was 21, after which he would become a free man. And at the age of 13, Nathaniel Abraham began what was supposedly a long road of rehabilitation. The state had less than 8 years to rehabilitate Nate. Would they succeed? On the 13th of January 2000, Nate was placed in the care of the Michigan Department of Human Services.
Nah, chat. So basically, he only got 8 years. Literally, only 8 years. 8 fucking years. That's wild.
Treatment and rehabilitation. Then he was moved to Maxie Boys Training School. And to everyone's surprise, by August of that very year, he began to show signs of responsibility. Throughout 2001, he passed all of his classes, and he was praised for his academic performance in math, reading, and note-keeping. By 2003, Nate was described as a leader within his group. He displayed a positive attitude, took on additional work, and followed directions. At this point, his supervisor decided it was time to get him to work in the real world. So at the age of 17, Nate began working in a Goodwill store. And before long, his employers at the store indicated that he displayed good communication skills and that he was courteous with the customers. Eventually, on the 18th of December and at the age of 18, Nathaniel earned his GED. The following year, he would earn his high school diploma, and eventually, he was just 1 year away from his release. So, was Nate rehabilitated? Had the juvenile system succeeded in transforming the 11-year-old killer?
I ain't gonna lie, this is a W. Bro, this is W. I ain't gonna lie, bro. He actually changed his life around in there. He actually, for me, did what he has to do.
Into a functioning member of society? He had shown constant progress through the years, and the world was about to find out if they had succeeded. If you noticed, the reports I relayed to you felt a little bit too clean, too sugary. Something was off. Well, you can blame me for that because I deliberately omitted some details. Nate had an anger issue. To be quite frank, he had a lot of issues. Enough of them to require several disciplinary actions taken against him. Nate had an affinity for getting into fights, even though he never really started them. He had a pattern of yelling at prison staff. During basketball games or any competitive sports, Nate had the tendency to get heated. He also had sticky fingers and had been caught more than once stealing cleaning supplies to give to his girlfriend. Again, most of these missteps were seen as just that, missteps, normal for any youth. What mattered was that he no longer participated in the crimes he had committed when he was 9. Remember? Larceny, malicious destruction of property, assault and illegal entry, murder. Nathaniel Abraham hadn't killed anyone in the 8 years since the trial. So on the 18th of January 2007, after spending nearly a decade in juvenile detention, Nate was free, released into society. He was a free man.
Yes, sir.
I wish this was the end of the story, and I wish I could wrap it up here with some Disney-esque happily ever after. But, unfortunately, there were more issues ahead for Nate.
No. This nigga just didn't learn.
For the first 18 months of his newfound freedom,
this nigga didn't learn, gang.
nothing remotely criminal or remarkable happened to Nate. Unfortunately, in May of 2008, Nate was arrested again in Pontiac with 254 ecstasy pills in a liquor bottle bag. He was sentenced to 4 to 20 years in prison, but eventually got paroled in June 2017. Did the rehabilitation fail, or was this just another misstep that Nate would learn from? Well, consider this. After he was discharged from parole in July of 2018, on the 6th of August of that same year, Nate got into more trouble with the police after he exposed himself in front of a 46-year-old neighbor who had declined his offer to cut her lawn. 2 days after that incident, he struck deputies who tried to take him into custody for skipping a court appearance. He was charged with resisting and obstructing police, a felony.
Oh my gosh, bro. Oh my gosh, this nigga did not learn a fucking
Punishable
thing.
by up to 4 years in prison. Had the system failed Nate, or was this his own doing? Or better still, undoing? In 2019, Nate, who is now 33, was handed a 6 to 40 years prison sentence for selling drugs to an undercover police officer in Farmington Hills. Before the sentence, he had pleaded guilty and shown remorse for his actions. This was probably the reason why the judge had been extremely lenient when sentencing him, because under normal circumstances, he would have had to face another life sentence because of his frequent problems with the law.
This nigga so, yo.
Nate wasn't alone in court on the day of his sentencing. His mother, siblings, and every relative that had been by his side since the start of his troubling journey with the law almost 20 years before was present. And when the cameras turned to his mother, when the questions about the support she had for her son came up, Gloria Abraham was unwavering. Nothing had changed on her end. "I believe in my son," she said, "and of course, society doesn't know his life. He will do okay. He's a strong young man."
Nate remains in prison. Oh my gosh, this nigga didn't learn anything. He didn't learn anything, chat. And of course, the mom is gonna support him. Like, what the fuck? That's probably why he's still doing the shit he doing. Cause he did everything he did, and you still supporting him. Bitch, you gotta tell the nigga the real sometimes. I'm gonna be honest, chat. You gotta tell your kids the real sometimes. It's not always butterflies and flowers, gang. Real shit. But YouTube, if you like this video, do me a favor, smash that like button, sub up. Let me know what type of videos you want to see. Appreciate everybody for watching this video, man. Follow my Twitch, JrTheOota. We go live every day. I'm out of here, man.